Before going into this week's episode of Dragon Ball Super, I kept thinking to myself, how are they going to top the Vegeta bingo dance from the movie? Well, I wouldn't say that they topped it, but they certainly went into the realm of ridiculousness, where in this week's episode, Vegeta goes completely out of his way to impress Lord Beerus to keep him happy by literally flying into the ocean, grabbing a giant octopus, and then turning himself into an iron frickin' chef as he makes a bunch of fresh takoyaki octopus balls for Lord Beerus. It's over the top, it's funny, and it's a little less embarrassing than when he did the bingo dance, but I have to admit, I was really ready to see him go up on stage again. But this week's episode, just like the rest of the last couple, pretty much follows Battle of Gods to a T, but they do manage to add in some new things, which are more action scenes, which is something that I really appreciate, especially at the very end of the episode when Lord Beerus is officially pissed off, because he wants to eat pudding, but Majin Buu wants all the pudding for himself. Thus leads to the ultimate battle, which doesn't really last very long, but I really love how it looks, especially because Mr. Satan is there this time. He's trying to stop them from fighting each other. Both Majin Buu and Beerus knock him into the side of the ship, and then they have this amazingly classic, old-school Dragon Ball standoff, where they're both standing right next to each other, getting ready to battle. Now, in the movie version, Majin Buu doesn't even get to land a single hit. Basically, Beerus just puts his hand up, he immediately sends him flying, and that's pretty much the end of Majin Buu. He even picks him up when he's done and continues to beat him, but at least in this week's episode, there's a little bit more to it. Majin Buu just immediately starts wailing on Beerus' face, and then suddenly Beerus grabs him, tosses him into the air, grabs him again, and then hits him with this massive ki blast into the ocean. And this is way more flashy than anything that they ever did in the movie, and I really like the little changes they're adding. And if you look at the preview for the next episode, you're going to get to see that a lot of the other side characters are actually going to get involved in the battle as well. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Dragon Ball Super? This week's episode was way better than the last, and that's an extreme disappointment because we all wanted Goku versus Beerus round 1 to be done really well, but as we all know, the artwork and the animation from that episode has become infamous in the week that it's been released. Luckily, this episode right here looked a lot better, it was cleaner, I thought the action was significantly better, especially at the end, and there was barely any action from this episode. In fact, this episode taught us right here that Dragon Ball Super is doing the comedy and the slice of life stuff a lot better than it's doing the action so far, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're still in the introductory part of the series, we're still being reintroduced to the characters, and this is a really great way to do it. There were a ton of amazing things going on this week if you have a favorite character from the series. In particular, I just loved seeing Krillin be over the top and ridiculous, especially because, you know, if you watch the Japanese version, you know that the guy who, or actually I think it's the girl that voices Luffy is actually the same voice of Krillin, and it can be kind of distracting if you know this fact, but Krillin was still really funny in this week's episode, especially when he got the wasabi takoyaki ball. He was pretty much screwed during that point. The peel-off gang was used very sparingly in this episode, which is the way I think they always need to be used in very small doses. That way we can appreciate them a little bit more and not get so annoyed by them. But my favorite part of the episode, without a doubt, was getting to see that little standoff between Majin Buu and Beerus at the end. I always really wanted Majin Buu and Beerus to fight. In fact, I always wanted Beerus to sort of acknowledge that this is Majin Buu. This is the legendary entity of pure evil, which was created thousands of years ago. He should know about him. But then again, Beerus is so disgustingly powerful that it really doesn't even matter to him. He just wants his damn pudding. Pudding is the catalyst for frickin' apocalypse in the Dragon Ball Z universe, and I'm really glad that they still went with that as the reason why him and Majin Buu are fighting. It's funny, it's over the top, and it's the only type of thing that I think Dragon Ball can get away with. That and maybe One Piece. They're very similar in how they can be very goofy and badass one moment later. A few other favorite moments from the episode for me, I did love the scene when Yamcha walks over to Beerus and he claims that he's the strongest fighter on Earth, and then he ends up just slapping him right in the back. Yamcha, shut the hell up. Also the scene where Yamcha was actually punching Piccolo and like training with him, and he was like just letting him hit his hand. Every single time that Yamcha hit, I could just picture Piccolo in his mind saying, "You're weak, you're weak, you're weak, you suck." They also expanded on that one flashback where Beerus goes to Planet Vegeta, and basically this time he's pissed off over a pillow. Before, he wasn't really all that impressed by the food. This time, he's got his boot down on King Vegeta, he's beaten his ass, and then when Vegeta sees this, he starts to run towards him, but stops because of the fear of Lord Beerus, which actually happens when he sees him again in this episode. And then, of course, you have Bulma meeting them and everything. It's pretty much all there, just like Battle of Gods, just with some minor differences. What I will say is this week's episode was significantly more enjoyable than the last. Beerus versus Majin Buu standoff at the end is the real reason to check out this episode. But if you're a fan of Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, anything in the Dragon Ball series, check out the series. You might see something you like. It got a real bad rep because of last week's episode, but I do have faith that it is going to get better from here, especially with all these brand new scenes that they are adding in. So I'm going to give this week's episode right here a 4 out of 5. I loved the moment at the end with Majin Buu. I just thought that was so incredibly epic. I was hoping it was going to lead to a much bigger action scene, but it was still more entertaining than what I saw in Battle of Gods, and that is a step in the right direction. So check it out, Dragon Ball fans. Cool episode. So I like this one a lot. It was a very simple but much better episode, I think, than last week, but I want to hear from you guys. Were you swayed by this week's episode? Did you like all the funny moments? The standoff with Majin Buu at the end? What do you hope to see from the rest of Dragon Ball Super? Please tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching my review. Make sure to like it and share it with your friends. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you can see all of our latest anime and manga reviews. You guys can also follow us on social media. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!